Namaste. Thank you for joining me once again. Today we are discussing mental health, and we're going to look at mental health through the lens of Ayurveda, through this ancient wisdom practice, and what Ayurveda can offer us. In the modern world, mental health has really emerged almost like an epidemic or a pandemic. It's really one of the most pressing public health concerns we have. People from every walk of life are seeking deeper and more holistic approaches to healing the mind. The world at large is filled with anxiety and depression and trauma and burnout. It's on the rise. And this reflects not only our personal struggles, but a systemic disconnect. It's a disconnect from nature, from our purpose, and from the wisdom of our own being, from our own intuitive knowing. This disconnect has led to a rise in conventional psychiatric treatments. Some of these are life-saving. Yes, I completely acknowledge that, and it's absolutely necessary. But now you walk into the doctor's office and you're sad, and here's a drug. Doctor doesn't ask you why you're sad, what's going on in your life, who are you, how is things for you? Just, I'm sad, here's a drug. I don't feel good, here's a drug. We're emphasizing this symptom suppression over root cause resolution. That's what Ayurveda offers us. Root cause, identifying the root cause, and having solutions for treating that root cause. However, in response, we're turning to drug after drug after drug, external stimuli. We drug ourselves with TV, we drug ourselves with food, with whatever pattern, whatever substance, whether it's TV or shopping or sex. It doesn't matter. We're drugging ourselves. We're numbing ourselves out from feeling. And it's time that on a global level, we look at the time-tested systems of healing that honor the complexity of human life, that honor the wisdom of the body, that honor the sacredness of spirit. Ayurveda offers an integrative approach, not just to healing the body. It offers an integrative, soul-centered perspective on mental health. It really recognizes that our true wellness arises not from the removal of discomfort, not from eliminating the discomfort, but really from restoring the balance within us and around us. The Ayurvedic view of mental health goes way beyond the brain and the neurochemistry of the brain. That's part of it. Where modern science is only focused on the brain and neurochemistry, Ayurveda goes so far beyond that. It understands the mind, this manas, that's divinely and intimately connected, not even separate from the body itself, from what we call sharira, the sense organs, the indriyas, and the spirit, the soul, the Atman, who we actually are behind all of it. And it also acknowledges the environment, the 5 elements, what's going on around us. All of these are contributing factors. So in Ayurveda, mental health is not a compartmentalized domain. It's a reflection of how we live, if we're living in harmony or not, in accordance with our own nature, our prakriti, and with the rhythm of life, with the rhythm of nature. Is there balance or is there imbalance? Because when we're in balance, even the difficulties in life, we can meet them with faith and courage and inspiration and determination. It's not that Ayurveda says there should be no problems or there should be no challenges or no difficulties. No, it gives us the tools to deal with that in a coherent, conscious way. And from the Ayurvedic viewpoint, our emotions, they're not random. They're not meaningless. They're there for a reason. They're messengers. They're intelligent, divinely intelligent messengers that arise from the dynamic interplay of the elemental forces, our unique constitution, our psychological patterns. Everything is this dynamic dance. Dancing should be fun. Dancing should be exciting. It can be challenging, of course, when you're learning the steps, but dancing is supposed to bring joy. But really, every thought and mood is embedded within this larger matrix we call life. And mental illness, from an Ayurvedic model, mental illness is not seen as a flaw or a failure at all. We have so much guilt and shame around having sadness, depression. We hide it. It's not that. It's a signal. Mental illness is a signal that something is out of balance. That's all. It's not a judgment on who you are or your value. or anything. All it's saying is that something's out of balance. And often it tells us that it's at the level of subtle energy before, like, we'll feel that. We'll feel and something is off on a subtle level before it manifests in the body or even the mind. In this podcast, in this episode, we're going to really explore the Ayurvedic model of mental health, its physiological roots, its philosophical roots, diagnostic principles, and in another episode, we'll look at therapeutic models that Ayurveda offers. But what we want to do is really examine how Ayurveda understands the cause of mental distress, mental dis-ease. We're not at ease. We're not at peace. Any moment we're not at peace, we have a mental illness because our nature is peace. Our nature is love. So we're going to look at how Ayurveda addresses the body-mind connection and its practical approaches. Ayurveda has this thing called Sattva Vijaya. Sattva Vijaya. It means mind training. It means the pure mind. And Ayurveda can offer herbs, nootropic herbs to help the mind, and so many other things to restore the harmony. But we want to not discount modern science. We want to see how it can actually unify with modern understanding of trauma, of neuroplasticity, of neuroresilience. These are all very important things. Ayurveda had these, but we didn't have these names for them. But what we're going to do is really, this is an invitation to remember something so profound. Really, that mental health is not just the absence of suffering. Mental health means it's the presence of clarity. It's the presence of vitality. It's living from a joyful and connected place. It's the natural expression of that sattvic quality, the quality of inner light, the quality of equilibrium. This is what Ayurveda holds as the highest goal of caring for the mind. Ayurvedic psychology is where the soul's longing meets the science of balance, where healing is not a destination. Healing is a return, even a remembrance of our wholeness. Remembering, remaking whole, reminding, reestablishing mindfulness in our wholeness of being. One of the balances in the Ayurvedic foundation, the foundation of Ayurvedic psychology is the harmony of philosophical and psychological framework that Ayurveda sees. The first thing we need to really look at is that subtle anatomy of the mind. And we've talked about this before in previous episodes. You can go back and listen to the episode on Sankhya philosophy, the foundation origin of Ayurveda. We talk about manas, atman, and buddhi, these qualities of mind. Ayurveda sees mental health beginning not with the brain, but with consciousness itself. The mind, which we refer to as manas, is one of 4 inner instruments, what's called antakarana, the inner instruments. So mind, manas, is working alongside the intellect, the buddhi. It's working in conjunction with that buddhi, that intellect, and the ahamkara, the sense of self, the sense of individual self, that I exist. We call it ego. It's that I am. In a pure state, I just am. That's it. Everyone is. Everyone is pure being. And then the highest state of consciousness, Atman, is the pure witness state, when we're an awareness. There's not an identification. These 4 faculties weave together to create an experience of life, basically, or an experience of understanding, thought, perception, emotion, memory, and our identity. A little bit more on this. Manas is really, what Manas does is the sensory and reactive mind. It processes the incoming data. It evaluates impressions and initiates a response. So we see something, we can identify, the mind can identify, this is safe, this is not safe, this is a threat, this is loving and harmonious. It's just processing the data. The buddhi is the discrimination faculty. It discriminates. It gives reason. It gives discernment. It gives clarity. And it helps us to make decisions. It's a higher decision making. It's always trying to lead us towards dharma, towards our purpose, towards our higher self. The ahamkar, which we call the ego, or the I maker, the sense of the individual identity, essentially is relating everything back to ourself. What is my role here? What is my position in the family, in the corporation, in the society? Who am I as a person here, as an incarnated being on the planet? And then that higher state, the Atman, is the pure, undistorted, undifferentiated awareness. It's beyond the mind. It's beyond the ego. It's not adulterated. It's not touched by pain or fear or desire. It's the awareness that's behind all of it. It's the awareness that was there when you were 3 years old, and then 9 years old, and then 15 years old, and 50 years old. As the body changes, as the material world changes, as the 5 elements are born and die, it's what always remains. It's that pure awareness behind it. How do we suffer? If we're this divine consciousness and we're this pure awareness, how is it that suffering comes? It's really simple, actually. The mental suffering arises when the mind, the manas, that sensory and reactive mind that processes the data, becomes disturbed. It's like the computer hardware system malfunctioning. It's an old, outdated system. Or the buddhi, the discrimination factor, becomes clouded. Someone spills water on the computer database, the program's not running right. In Ayurvedic psychology, true mental health is the alignment of all those faculties when the reactive mind is not reactive. There's a saying in yoga, yogas chitta vritti nirodha. It means yoga, union with self, with the creation, happens when the vrittis, the fluctuations of thinking of the mind, stop. In that place, our intellect becomes clear, and the ego is healthy. It's not dominant. When the ego is dominant, it's like the tail of the dog wagging the dog versus the dog wagging the tail because it's happy. We need an ego. All these philosophies that say destroy the ego, that's insane. If we destroy the ego, how are we going to function here? We're not going to remember where we live. We're not going to remember to pay the bills. We're not going to remember to feed ourselves. Now, ultimately, from a yogic perspective, becoming egoless is the goal. But if everyone does that, who's going to take care of them? When you become completely egoless, when you're in that exalted state, you can no longer take care of yourself. You need devotees. You need people around you to take care of yourself. We need the ego. It's an operating system for the mainframe. It just shouldn't be in charge. Imagine if the computer takes over and starts doing what it wants. If AI takes over, we're in trouble. We should still be in control of AI. AI can be used for good or bad. Money can be used for good or bad. It's not the substance itself, it's how it's used. So the ego itself isn't good or bad, it's how it's used. It's a function of being here on the planet. And ultimately what we want to do is identify who we are with the self, that's connected to everything, that unchanging source. Remember also, if you go back to the previous talks, I will cover it right now quickly, but we talked about the 3 gunas, the 3 qualities of the mind, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. And these are the fundamental forces that govern the mind. They're the universal qualities in nature, of Prakriti, of nature, that it permeates all of life. Sattva is the clarity, the harmony, the light, the truth, the balance, the innate wisdom. Rajas is the active state. It's the passion that invokes us to do something. It's ambition. It's desire. When it's out of balance, it's restlessness, but it's just action. It helps us to move. Without that rajas, nothing is happening in the universe. And then tamas, again, is the inertia state. It's also darkness. Without darkness, we don't have daytime. We don't have a good night's sleep. So we need some inertia. Everything that's in action should also have a place of rest. When it's in its imbalanced state, it leads to confusion, attachment, ignorance, things like this. In fact, all 3 of these qualities, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, all 3 of them are present in the mind at all times, just in varying proportions. Just like in our body and our unique constitution, everyone has Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, just in its own unique balance. The ideal mental state for Ayurveda is one where it's predominantly sattva supported by rajas used constructively and a little bit of tamas, which gives rise to rest and sleep and, the winter season and rejuvenation on one level. Sattva gives rise to that joyful sound, the inner quality, the silence, the sound of silence. Sattva gives that state of peace and contentment and mental clarity and compassion. Ultimately, what Sattva is doing, it's the quality that's reflecting our soul's light through the lens of the mind. That's what we're striving for. is a predominance of that sattva quality. We need a little bit of the others. When rajas is dominating us, the mind is agitated all the time. It's restless, it's anxious, and it's overly driven by the sense desires. If you look at any major city, like specifically New York, Los Angeles, probably every major city, there's coffee shops on every corner. In New York, last time I was there was 2019. And in one area in Times Square, there was 4 Starbucks in one block. People couldn't even walk across the street. We need that sensory stimulation all the time. And we think that our value as a human is dependent on how much we produce and how much we create. So we need to go, 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 go. That's the Rajasic dominant state of being. We need the Rajas. We want to have inspiration. Inspiration and motivation are a little bit different. Inspiration comes within. Motivation is an external stimulus that has the propensity for us to want to do something outside of ourselves, to achieve something, either a personal self-worth or a material gain. When the tamasic quality is predominant, then the mind is dull. It's lethargic. It's obscured and hindered by fear, by denial. And that's when depression sits in. It's from constant repression of emotions, depression, pressed down, what's not being expressed. And when we depress or repress something, it's like a beach ball with air in it, and we hold it under the water. When you let it go, it comes back so much stronger. It can smack us in the face, go everywhere, make lots of waves and ripples and splashes. All depression is unexpressed emotion. We don't currently have a societal structure that really is supporting that. All of Ayurvedic mental health therapies aim to reduce the excessive rajas and tamas and cultivate more sattva. That's all. Very simple. And likewise, the doshas in the mind have a very intimate connection to each other. They're associated, the physical constitutions, and dis-ease has very distinct psychological manifestations. So for a vata mind is very creative, the most creative, imaginative, quick thinking. And at the same time, when out of balance, it's prone to anxiety and fear and excessive worrying and overstimulation. The vata mind tends to ruminate and catastrophize. The pitta mind is sharp and focused and intelligent. When it's out of balance, it's angry, it's critical, it's that perfectionism. And under stress, it becomes super impatient. That mental inflammation and intense emotional flare-ups are very common when the pitta is out of balance. It's excessive rajas. And the kapha mind, which is associated with excessive tamas, is that calm. When it's balanced, it's calm, it's grounded, it's loyal, it's filled with compassion. But when it's out of balance, it's lethargic, it's stubborn. It becomes overly attached to things, codependent, and it becomes super depressed. It's the most depressed. Kapha would be the one that we would think would probably commit suicide. However, they're not motivated enough to do it, thank God. So kapha minds, when they're out of balance, tend to numb out or suppress emotion any way they can. These doshic mental tendencies are called manasika prakriti, one's mental constitution. And everyone, again, has a unique combination of this. So we have to consider both the physical and psychological propensity to each individual. That's the prakriti, the natural state. Prakriti is what's manifesting. These imbalances, we have to look at the imbalances when we're coming up with a treatment plan or how to deal with this. But really the most important, we have these channels in the body called shrotas. They're rivers, essentially. And in Ayurvedic physiology, health depends on the integrity of these shrotas, these channels, these pathways. All energy and all nutrients flow through these different pathways. What's called the manovāha shrota, the channel of the mind, the subtle channel, which all of our thoughts, our impressions, our emotions, our feelings, they move through this channel. Some are calling this the vagus nerve. But all of this is influenced by the nervous system, by our sensory input, what we're taking in. Are we taking in violent shows like Game of Thrones and violent movies and video games, or are we taking in beautiful nature and love stories and true stories with uplifting messages? What is our emotional memory? What are the emotional traumas? What happened inside of us as a child as a result of the external situations? Even our breathing. I mean, really, breathe and everything changes. Krishnamacharya said, breathe and everything changes. The breath is so directly correlated with the mind. Even I met a Green Beret, and one of the first things in their training is breath control. If you can't control the breath, you can't control the mind. It's not rigid control, it's mastery over the breath. It's mastery over the self. When this shrota, this manavaha shrota, this channel of the mind becomes obstructed from trauma, from unresolved emotions, from physical or mental toxins, from overstimulation, that's when our mental symptoms really start to show their head. They start to emerge. The blockages, we know that there's a blockage when we start experiencing insomnia, anxiety, we're confused, we have a lack of motivation or inspiration or vitality, and it leads to depression. Ayurveda offers therapies for purifying these channels, all the channels of the body. One of the best ways of cleansing the mind is chanting. Specifically, very simple. Anyone can do this. Chanting of Om. Om. Doing that over and over again. Do it 9 times, 18, 27, 54, 108 times. Just chanting Om, toning. Modern science is all about this vagus nerve. We're going to talk about that in a whole nother podcast. It's got a podcast to its own coming soon. But toning is a profound way of toning this vagus nerve and reestablishing connection in the mind and the heart. That's another thing. The mind-heart connection called hridaya. Hridaya is actually considered the seat of our consciousness. Ayurveda situates the seat of the mind not in the brain but in the heart, the spiritual heart, the hridaya. Such a beautiful word, hridaya. Ah, yes, bless, aya. The heart is seen as a subtle home of our consciousness and our feeling and our intuition. It's where the mind, the manas, the atman, the soul, and prana, all of our life force converge. And when we have emotional wounds that are stored up in the heart, that dramatically affects our mental clarity just as much as just a purely mental trauma. The importance of the heart, of hridaya, the spiritual heart in mental health, really speaks to how Ayurveda emphasizes our emotional processing. And it happens through heart-based living. That's a crucial aspect to our psychological wellness and our spiritual alignment, is living from the heart, living in love. And when the mind is sattvic, it promotes this unification. It's not just simply a stabilization of our emotion or managing symptoms. It's this cultivation of sattva creates peace and awakeness in our heart, the hridaya and the mind, both the heart and the mind, physically and as a spiritual center. It's often said that the longest journey a human can take is from the head to the heart, and it's a few inches. But it's really getting out of the ego mind, the separate, limited mind, into a spiritual place in our heart where we do have clear perception, and we have for the most part, we have a stable inner joy, an inner contentment, and we're free from the different compulsions and addictions. And ultimately, what an addiction is an attachment to something outside of ourself to feel at peace, to feel okay. Addicts, if you're addicted to something, you're not a criminal. You're not a bad person. You're actually trying to solve a fundamental problem. We're not at peace. We're not connected to self. There's a disconnect from self where we're not self-content. So we're seeking outside of ourselves because as a child, we weren't given the tools how to self-regulate, how to self-soothe, how to self-parent. We shouldn't have had to self-parent. Our parents should have parented us, right? So these addictions were adaptations. They were actually survival adaptations. So there's no such thing as a bad person because of an addiction. We just need to we need to have compassion and safety where we can reorient in our heart. Then there's a spontaneous alignment with the higher truth, and this wellspring of compassion rises in us. Ayurveda doesn't seek to fix the mind. The mind isn't broken. All the mental imbalances, that's actually the mind imbalance. The imbalance is the balance because it's there to warn us, hey, something's not right with the way we're going. Something's not right with the way we're living. So there's actually no such thing as imbalance. The world, our bodies, our mind are always in balance, but it's the balance on the seesaw is one way or the other. So it's about restoring the balance. It's about restoring the mental clarity. And ultimately, it's like this. It's removing what's unnatural. That's it. Because living separately, living in discord, that's not natural. So we're removing what's not natural so we can be what we are, nature. And we remove or we uncover or we shed compassion and light on the unprocessed nature, on the unprocessed emotions, on shedding light, shedding truth on what's untrue. Separateness is untrue. Division is untrue. It's not the truth of the universe. It's not the truth of the self. Ayurveda gives so many ways we can do this. Herbal medicine, mantras, meditation, breath work, selfless service, anything. There's so many ways. Well, that's a whole nother episode. That's the next episode. We're just identifying what mental health is now. So Ayurveda says, truly, the cause of mental imbalances, it's not random. It's not merely a chemical imbalance, although sometimes it is. When the gut microbiome is disrupted, there's going to be a chemical imbalance. 93% of our neurohormones and neurotransmitters are produced in our gut. So if there is a gut imbalance, there will be a chemical imbalance in the brain. Our happiness and contentment hormones, serotonin and dopamine, are produced almost entirely in the gut. When they're depleted, there's a chemical imbalance in the brain. Why do they become depleted? From stress. Number one causative factor is stress. When we're in a stressed state, the body produces adrenaline. It produces cortisol. It produces histamines. Why? Because that's how we survive. It produces those chemicals, shuts off the digestive system, puts all the energy in our mind so we can be on high alert. Where's the danger? Where do we run, or who do we have to fight? It's the body is in a divine state of awareness. We're just not aware. And so it's that disruption between the body, the mind, the senses, the environment, and our soul that leads to all the imbalances. And there's so many layers. There's physical layer, there's emotional layer, there's the energetic layer, there's the psychological layer, there's the spiritual layer, where the biomedical model locates the suffering in the brain, or even genetics, which is less than 3%. But the root cause is an imbalance in the system, which, if we grew up in very difficult situations, it started as a child. Even the root level of these disharmonies could span across lifetimes. From karmic choices. Again, that doesn't make someone good, bad. You don't just say that's their karma. That's not compassionate. Yeah, maybe it is their karma, but it's also then our karma to help if we can. The fundamental principle in Ayurveda is also in yoga. It's called prajnaparada. It means an offense against the wisdom. It's a disruption. It's like all mental or physical disruption means that we went against the natural wisdom of the universe. That's really what's Ayurveda emphasizes, the root cause of all physical or mental imbalances. And it's not that we're bad for that. We weren't taught correctly. Okay? So, but what an offense against wisdom means, any thought, action, or lifestyle that goes against the natural intelligence of nature, our deeper knowing, our deeper intuition. Every person knows the difference between what is dharmic and adharmic. And when we ignore our intuition or suppress our authentic self or our inner truth and repeatedly engage in these self-destructive behaviors, knowing that they're not beneficial for us, we create a friction, a disruption, a ripple in the psyche. One example of this would be staying in a toxic, abusive relationship out of fear, or overworking and ignoring the body's signal. For us, I think that's a major problem in society these days. Overworking, trying to achieve something, and the body is not feeling well. It just keeps running down. We just ignore the body's natural signals. And on the next level of that, it's avoiding our emotional processes, avoiding emotional processing, and avoiding doing self-inquiry out of either laziness or fear of what we might find. And based on that, the easy solution is Friday night, go for the whiskey. Go for whatever the substance is that is your substance of choice or behavior of choice. We go engage in the addictive pattern to numb the discomfort instead of looking at it. Because on the weekend, we want to relax, right? We don't want to have to process the whole week. So over time, the prajnaparada, this disruption of natural wisdom, dulls the buddhi, the faculty of our discrimination, and the rajasic energy and the tamasic energy increase, and the mind becomes more vulnerable to distress. The more we abandon that inner knowing, the further we drift from the center, and the mental suffering follows. And it's harder to get back in balance. And it's more painful to get back in balance, but we have to do it. Otherwise, we just then go for the drugs to continue numbing out. Then asatniya samyoga, the misuse of our senses. This refers to improper use or even abuse of our sense organs, either through overstimulation or deprivation or toxic exposure. Buddha tried this. He fasted until he was almost dead, and he had already had excess as a prince. He realized that it's the middle path. It's not by too much or too little that yoga is attained. Krishna said the same thing. Not by too much or too little do we find that equilibrium. The sense organs are our gateway between our inner mind and our outer world. And when they're overwhelmed or misused, the mind becomes completely unstable. Some examples of what Ayurveda would say that misuse is. Now, Ayurveda actually wouldn't say this because we didn't have these things back then, but it's excess of screen time, excess of social media scrolling, or violent media exposure. The concept is ahimsa, nonviolence. That includes in our mind what we take in, or constant noise. If you live in a city, New York, in a construction zone, that constant noise is overstimulating. It's a disharmonic frequency. And if you live or work in a place with artificial lighting, that is so disruptive to the pineal gland. That causes calcification. We can't think properly. Likewise, this is seeping into our food supply chain. It's not seeping in, it's completely overrun. It's overprocessed food. It's chemically laden food with hormones and GMOs and artificial coloring and artificial flavors and all this overly processed food that has no nutritional value. It disrupts our neurobiological chemistry. It disrupts the gut-brain axis. And the other thing that's actually really harmful is gossip. Constantly talking about other people, arguing, watching the news. That's toxic because, I'm not sorry, but if you're watching the news, one side or the other, it's there to create a divide. It's biased. It's owned by corporations who want you thinking one way or the other. Turn off the news. Find out what's going on inside you. That's much more exciting. But all these things, this misuse of the sense organs, it creates a toxic impression in the mind. Now, again, this isn't a judgment on a soul. This isn't a criticism. You're not good or bad, right or wrong if you're doing these things. It's just these are the clear steps of creating disharmony in your own mind. So we have to acknowledge that. We have to be willing to look at that because these things cloud our perception. These things trigger our anxiety. They lead to depressed states. I don't watch the news, but every time someone sends me a news article, it's pretty depressing, right? Why do that? Ayurveda wants us to purify the senses. We should take proper rest at night. We should go to nature, walk in the forest, walk in the sand, swim in the ocean, listen to beautiful, gentle sounds. Listen to the birds sing. Take time. This is so cliche, but take time and smell the roses. Look at beautiful things and eat consciously in a way that's supporting your unique constitution and your mental health. Another concept in Ayurveda is parinama. It means the effects of time or the effects of karma and the effects of change. It ultimately means transformation over time. Life is impermanent. Inherently, it's impermanent. Everything that was created, it's not destroyed. It just changes form. A balloon has air in it. It pops. We're like that. The soul inside the container of the human vehicle, the karma mobile, it's like the air inside a balloon. When the balloon pops, the air still exists. It just merges. It goes somewhere else. Everything that was created is never destroyed. It just changes form. That's modern quantum physics. But life itself is inherently impermanent. The human system is always changing. It's always evolving. When we resist life, when we resist change, that's when we suffer. Yeah, if our family members are going to die and we're going to miss them. But when we go into a long, prolonged grief state, we suffer. And I can't imagine that any one of our beloved family members who leaves this world wants us suffering in any way. Yeah, it's sad, of course, because we love them so much. Actually, what we should be focusing on is how much we love them and celebrate life even more in their memory and in their name. But these transitions are guaranteed. Aging happens, endings happen. Sometimes it happens before we think it's time, but somehow there's a perfection to the universe, no matter how difficult it seems. We go through these phases of life. We're a child, we're adolescence, and then we have adulthood, and then we have old age. Women have they have their menstruation, they have postpartum, they have menopause. All of this, it's all changing. Likewise, our mind is always changing. How many times a day do we change our mind? You know, there's a concept in Ayurveda and yoga and Vedanta, Kala, Mahakala, the great time, the great ruler of time. That has a major influence on our mental health. Seasonal transitions, especially in the winter. We have this thing in the northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere too, depending on how far away from the equator you are. It's called SAD, seasonal affective disorder. It's when the sun goes away. I actually call it sunshine absence disorder. But when the sun is far from us, we're not getting enough light. We're enshrouded in tamas, in darkness, right? So it's Sattva or Rajas absence disorder. And there's so much depression in the Scandinavian countries, in the northern parts of the United States, Canada, like this. These places where they don't get sun so much of the year. Right? And as we age, there's so much age-related diseases, these Alzheimer's and all these neurological decline issues. I think a lot of it is coming from unresolved emotions. Identity crisis, even not knowing who we were in life. Now, obviously, in the Vedic astrology, we also look at planetary karmas because different planets in different houses can intensify and different mental tendencies, both sattvic and tamasic and rajasic, all of it. But when we have unprocessed grief, when we have fear of death, when we have resistance to letting go, resistance to change, all of these create dukkha. Dukkha is suffering. And it's rooted in the changing nature of life. So we just need to understand that that's the nature of life. And with that, love to the fullest of our capacity in every single moment. Because really, the next breath is not in our control. We don't know. We have no idea. But we're really here for love. We're here for self-growth. So when we can go through these transitions, grounded in routine, grounded in nourishment, grounded in a spiritual perspective, and we do rituals that honor the passing of these different phases. When I became a teenager, I didn't get any rituals into manhood. We didn't know what a man was. My parents didn't teach me what it was to be a man. Some boys in the gym locker tried to teach, but they didn't know anything either. We need to reestablish these rituals and these delineations of time phases. When we're done with working phase and we become the elder in the tribe. If we have wisdom, then we should be honored as the wise elders in the tribe because we've gone through life's experience. But most people went through life working and drinking coffee and trying to achieve more. Now they have money and they don't know who they are and they don't have that many years left and they haven't been living in balance, so they're not healthy to enjoy the money. So we should enjoy now in a dharmic way, in a perfect, purposeful way. That's what a dharma means. It means living out of alignment with purpose. That's a root cause of mental imbalance as well. A dharma is living in opposition to your soul path, to your purpose. In Vedic philosophy, this concept of swadharma, each soul has a swadharma, a unique inner calling that is reflective of the soul's highest contribution in alignment. And everyone, when we're in that swadharma, it's like little puzzle pieces. All the puzzle pieces make the puzzle beautiful. So we all have to play our little part. We can't do anybody else. We can only do ourselves. Everyone else is taken. If we go against our dharma, if we betray our dharma, whether it's due to conditioning or due to fear or peer pressure, societal pressure, whatever it is, our soul is in pain. Our soul aches. And this manifests as depression, anxiety, apathy, chronic dissatisfaction, and more addiction, seeking something outside of ourselves because we don't know to look within. No one told us that. Most of the modern health conditions at their core are a spiritual crisis. The soul is calling out in desperate need for its mother, for its father, for compassionate wisdom, elder guidance, and the ego is refusing to listen. The remedy is not just therapy and medication. It's the courage to return to purpose. It's the courage to return to meaning and to our soul's alignment. Ayurveda integrates all of this, the physical process and healing in a spiritual dimension. Another major thing that we really look at in the Vedic tradition is these samskaras. These samskaras are patterns. Really, they're just like grooves in a record. They're just patterns. They're deep-seated impressions that we carry with us from past lives or from our childhood traumas. They're the subconscious programs. We want to make them conscious, or even ancestral. Ancestral trauma is passed down. So whether it's a traumatic memory that's buried in the subconscious or ancestral pain, unresolved grief passed down epigenetically, the solution still is the same. Whether it's patterns of abuse or abandonment or family addiction, the solution is the same. Whether it's a soul contract we made or a trauma from a past incarnation, the solution is the same. It's love. We have to provide safety, love, compassion, empathy, and reshape how we're looking at it. There's a great saying, we will not solve the problems of the world with the same thinking that created them. We have to have a new way of looking at things. But all these imprints, regardless of where they came from, shape the way that we think and feel and relate to ourselves and relate to the world. True healing experience, true healing requires us to not only work at the level of our behavior, but to, on a major level, clear these energetic residues that are stored in our nadis, in the energy channels, in the shrotas, in the chitta, in that storehouse of impressions up in the mind. That's another category of mind, chitta, the storehouse of impressions. It's like the hard drive storing everything. This happens, we change this through compassionate inquiry, through compassionate inner work. We can do soul level forgiveness rituals. So many things can be done. That's the next episode. We're going to look at all the therapies. One more major thing to look at is what's called Agni Manda. Agni Mandya. It means weak digestion. And in this quality, it means weak mental digestion. Digestion, the physical digestion, especially in the central digestive system, is called Jatara Agni. But the mental digestion is Agni Mandya, the mind Agni. And so digestion is on a physical level. It's also on a mental level. It's a key to our psychological wellness, really. What are we able to see, perceive, and then what are we able to digest? What are we digesting our experiences? No matter how pleasurable or how difficult they are we giving a purpose to them, a meaning? How are we processing them? Are we learning from them? There's another saying, life is the school and love is the lesson. What are we learning from life? Are we learning the lessons we're supposed to learn? If we don't learn the lesson, we have to keep taking the exam over and over again. And that's exhausting. And that can lead to suffering. Are we able to consciously, not subconsciously, consciously? We can't do anything subconsciously. We have to bring it to the conscious. But are we able to consciously release what's no longer serving us? What's not needed? What are the outdated programs? The subconscious programs are the old outdated programs. When your computer needs a new program, it says update required. You simply update it. You don't think, should I update it? I'm attached to the old system. No, you learn the new system. It's that simple. If you keep the old system, it can be infected with a virus. It can be hacked. It becomes stagnant. It becomes toxic. Likewise, the ego and these subconscious programs are hacking our consciousness from updating. That's emotional indigestion. That's repressed grief. That's cognitive overload. We have poor concentration. Our thoughts are racing about the past or the future. And we can't make good decisions. So we need to not just strengthen our physical body, we need to strengthen the mind. Strengthen the mental Agni means improving our emotional processing capacity, our emotional intelligence. How do we do this? It doesn't happen spontaneously. We do it through things like journaling and meditation and talking to someone in a sacred way, sacred dialogue. It also happens through silence and being in nature, through healthy expressions of art, of movement, of song, of dance. These are the different ways we can metabolize our emotion and the emotional content that we receive in life. Without this, unresolved emotions ferment and rot in our psyche, just like rotting food in the gut. And that creates candida, bacterial yeast, H. pylori, all these horrible bacterias. Ayurveda views the cause of mental imbalance as being really pretty multidimensional and deeply interconnected. Nothing is separate, okay? And just really an important reminder, these are not seen as problems that need to be solved. They're portals. They're messengers. They're opportunities to return to harmony, presence, and our soul alignment. So I'm going to stop for today. And the next episode, we're going to talk about Ayurvedic diagnostics for mental health and how Ayurveda would go about treating it, the specifics of that. For today, I thank you so much for joining me. I really I hope that this was beneficial in some way. I hope it shed light on the situation, give you a deeper understanding of how the body-mind connection works. And until next time, walk in balance, walk in peace, fill your hearts with love, and express that in everything you do in every moment. Life is short. We don't know when the next moment death is going to come for us. So love to your capacity every single moment, every single day. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Namaste.